Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Do you feel stuck, silent, and stressed? Is something hurting your heart and soul? Are you burning yourself out? If so, you are in the right place because this is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with inner peace and joy. Let's get started.
Hey, last episode I was telling you about the Stanford prison experiment because I was making the point that our environment and the context within which we are experiencing our lives can have a huge impact on us in terms of how we behave, how we think and feel. You know, to the point where, there were these students in this prison experiment who got so caught up in that context and in that environment, under the influence of that environment, that they began to act in ways that nobody had predicted. Like the experimenters themselves got taken by surprise. You know, and by the way, this is just one experiment where they've discovered these kinds of results. I can tell you about experiment after experiment after experiment that shows that this is very, very true. Let me give you another really quick example. So, for example, they've found that people will tend to behave in ways that are uncharacteristic, out of their character, when they are placed in environments, for example, like during, let's say, you certain kinds of even holidays and festivals that are part of different cultures, where it's like part of the culture. Like, for example, like on Halloween, you go to a costume party, so people put on masks, put on these costumes, and a lot of times it's like, whew, you're in this environment where everybody feels more free and uninhibited to act in ways that they would not act in their everyday lives, that they would actually think were embarrassing or even ludicrous to act. But once you put on that mask, you put on that costume, and you are in that kind of environment where everyone's acting silly, everyone's acting a little crazy, you find yourself getting caught up in that mood, in that energy. And you end up, acting a little crazy and a little out there yourself. And now, for the most part, for most people, this is just like, very harmless and fun experience, just a way for them to loosen up and release, and no harm done. But we know about situations, about circumstances where this has actually turned ugly, where people have put on these masks and these costumes and gone out and done some really ugly things. Because with that costume on, with that mask on, their identity hidden, they no longer felt afraid or inhibited in terms of having to feel social censure, for example, or if you don't think you're going to get caught, if you don't think you're going to get in trouble because of how you're acting, you're much more likely to act in that way. And when people put on costumes, they put on masks, they begin to feel that they can get away with things that they wouldn't otherwise because their identity is hidden. See? So it's like, wow, we have these experiences even in our everyday lives that validate again and again and again this idea, this fact, in fact, that our environments have a huge impact on us, on the beliefs that we come to hold about life and the realities of life. And we know that there's a causal chain. Our experiences have an influence on the beliefs that we form, and then there's a causal chain. The beliefs that we have generate the thoughts that we have, which generate the feelings that we have, which lead to the actions that we engage in. So it's like, okay, well, fine. Let's say I accept that. Let's say you're convinced by all that. Now the question that arises is, if all this is true, what does this mean about the notion of responsibility? Can we still hold ourselves and other people responsible for their behaviors? For example, in the context of, let's say there is a child abuser. And when you first come to know that, oh, this person's a child abuser, you have an immediately repulsive reaction. It's I think it's really interesting when I first learned about this, that child abuse is a crime that is so looked down upon, not only by the community, our society in general, but even in the prisons. The people who are imprisoned on charges of child abuse, they are looked down upon by the other prisoners. Other prisoners are disgusted by them, and they will harass them and mistreat them because they're just so abhorred by the very thought of child abuse. This is because there's something about the idea of child abuse that is just so repellent. It's like, my God, the children, they're innocent. And it's because, I think, because it is, the children are innocent, and we perceive them to be such, that we react so strongly to the idea of, my God, you abused a child. How could you do that? What kind of a monster would do such a thing? What kind of an evil, crazy person would you have to be in order to abuse a child? And then, you look at the histories of these child abusers and what they've been through in their own lives and what their experiences have been that have informed their beliefs, which then informed their thinking, which then informed their feelings, which then led to their actions. And you find that, my God, these people are in their own way, they're suffering. They were oftentimes victims of abuse themselves. And you're like, oh, if you actually have the courage to open your heart enough to like really look at that person as a person and really, make an honest effort to empathize with them, often results in your experiencing a sense of great compassion for the suffering that these people have faced themselves. So it's like, okay, so now what then? So then do we just let these people go scot-free because they suffered themselves? Does that mean that they're not responsible for their choices, for what they did? That we cannot punish them or should not punish them? And this was, a question, an idea that was really kind of, very important question to me. It was something that I really wrestled with and struggled with for a long time because, I found, like, certainly it was true in my experience, but I also see this happening with a lot of my clients that I work with when it comes to, when we come to the point where I'm like, you know what you need, like, in order to continue your healing is to forgive. Forgive in terms of releasing the anger, releasing the negativity that you have been holding on to as a result of how you were hurt. You get to that point, it's like clear that, we've done everything else that we possibly can to help this person, but the thing that's now holding up their healing process is that they're continuing to hold on to that anger, to that hatred, and other negative feelings. It's like you have to let them go to move on. You have to let go to move forward, right? But one of the things that can hold us back, that prevents us from being able to let go of that hurt, of that anger, is this concern that we have in our mind that if I let go of my anger, if I let go of my hatred, doesn't that mean that I'm saying what happened to me doesn't matter? Won't that mean that I have to let this person go who hurt me? That I'm saying, I'm okay with justice not being done, that, this person just goes scot-free. And that very idea that, that this person who has hurt me so much, that they will just be let go, just go scot-free to move on with their lives as if nothing had happened because I've forgiven them. It's like so disturbing. It was just like, like there's like this instinct that I had that it's like, no, that's just not acceptable. That's just not acceptable. And so I was like resisting letting go of my anger. I mean, there were other reasons too, but this was one big reason. And then, like, especially like, oh my gosh, it's like, especially if you find yourself experiencing a sense of empathy and compassion for the person who hurt you. Oh my God, then it's like all the more difficult. I mean, in our imagination, it's like if I allow myself to feel empathy and compassion, then maybe I won't even want to punish them anymore. And it's like, no. I'm just so, like, I just want justice to be done. I want this person to be held accountable. I want this person to be punished, to suffer for what they did to me. So the very thought of, like, oh my God, like, if I allow myself to feel compassion and empathy and then I won't want to punish them, is like not acceptable. It's like, it's like, okay, so it's like we're it's like stuck in this catch-22. If we don't let go of our anger and hatred and other negative feelings, then we are doomed to continue to suffer for the rest of our lives, because all these negative feelings are like literally preventing us from experiencing the kind of inner peace and joy that we want to experience in our life. But on the other hand, it's like, if it seems that if I was to let go and of these negative feelings, then my need for justice would go unmet. And how is that acceptable? This is like, oh my God, paradox or something, But is it really? Is it really? One of the things that I've discovered in my life is that a lot of times when we find ourselves stuck in these kind of catch-22s or apparent paradoxes, the problem isn't that there is in fact a paradox. The problem isn't that there isn't in fact a better solution. The problem is just that we cannot see the better solution because we are taking just a very narrow perspective of our circumstances and our situation. And so the solution to our quandrum lies in broadening our perspective. Broadening our perspective and examining the issue from a higher level of analysis in general is what's really needed. So for example, like I've been sharing with you how I've been in this process of forgiving the person that abused me as a child, right? And if I've described to you that process in quite a lot of detail by this point in time. Now, do notice that I have been going through this process. By the way, I'm still, continuing to go through the forgiveness process with regards to that person. I mean, I've made amazing progress, but you know what? There's still room for improvement. There is. And I can see where that room for improvement is, but I'll get into that maybe next episode. But the point is that even to this day, I'm going through the forgiveness process relative to the experience of abuse that I had. And I have been hugely successful, right, in terms of letting go of a lot of the negative energy that I was carrying around as a result of what had happened. So I'm not like just making this up. I really am living with a lot of inner peace and a lot of joy. And I'm able to do that because of how much I've been able to let go of the anger and the hatred and other negative feelings that I'd been holding on to. In fact, I can say that the level of inner peace and joy that I'm able to experience now is directly proportional to how much I've been able to let go of my negative feelings. Okay, so it's like, all right, I've already been in this process. I have let go. I am continuing to let go. But guess what? I'm still taking responsibility for myself and what I experienced and how I reacted or didn't react. And I am still able to clearly, in my mind, hold my abuser responsible for what he did. So it's not like so the truth of the matter was that even after I began the forgiveness process, even having achieved at a level of the forgiveness process where I've actually even developed some empathy and compassion for the person who abused me, I'm still able to hold this person responsible. I'm still able to recognize that what he did was very, very wrong and very, very harmful. And I'm still able to say that, you know what? It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, at one level, yes, from the perspective of my being able to feel empathy and compassion for the person who abused me, it's important that I understand his suffering and the hardships that he's experiencing or experienced in his past. That's important. But at the same time, I can say to you that, it doesn't matter what you have experienced in your life. In the final analysis, we are still responsible for our actions. We are still responsible for our actions. Even if we have been treated very, very badly, we can still choose to do better ourselves. We don't have to, give in to that mentality of an eye for an eye. Or maybe even worse, it's like, oh, you took out an eye, I'm not only going to take out your eye, but I'm also going to chop off your head in the process. It's like we don't have to give in to that kind of way of thinking. So even as there are many, many abusers or people who are engaging in abusive behavior, and it's true that they have experienced abuse themselves in their past, there are so many also people, like including myself, who have experienced abuse in my past, and I chose to channel that that the emotions and the feelings that I had, and all in a very different direction. You see, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, what I went through felt so bad to me that I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. And so, you see, instead of like I could have chosen to just give in to my anger, but I chose not to. You see? If I had chosen to give in to my anger, to continue to hold on to it, I can assure you I would be a very, very different person today. And who knows, I would probably, even if I didn't end up abusing a child, but because insofar, when I was that angry, hateful person, I was hurting people. Not like I intended to abuse them, not like I intended to hurt them, but it was just that the way that I reacted when I was angry and so judgmental and so full of hate, it was just, that energy is just so negative that it's like, my God, the person who's on the other end or even around that energy, they get impacted by it, and it's not a good impact, right? So it's like, my God, I actually ended up hurting people in my life, including some of the people that I loved the most. I ended up hurting them when I was in my angry state. So I didn't mean to, but I ended up doing it, right? So that's another reason why it's so critical and crucial and important that we let go of the anger, that we let go of the negativity, because otherwise we can so easily get caught up in the downward spiral of that negativity. And then it begins to impact our behaviors, and it can, my gosh, I mean, that is part of how, you see, it's like it's, this notion of when the oppressed become the oppressor. That is why it happens. When the oppressed becomes the oppressor, that is why it happens, because in the change, in their struggle to free themselves of oppression, the oppressed, they did not let go of their anger. They did not choose to practice forgiveness. They did not allow themselves to feel empathy and compassion. And so after they achieved their freedom, well, I mean, look, what did their life experience teach them? Their life experience taught them that if you want your freedom, you have to engage in violence. You have to force other people, compel other people through the use of violence to get what you want. So it's like now they're free, but they still have that same kind of thinking, that in order for us now to keep our freedom and maintain our freedom, we have to continue to engage in the violence. We have to continue to force people to do what we want, to do what we say. So that's the big problem with this kind of thinking. And if you hold on to that negativity, and you don't practice forgiveness, if you don't follow and engage in the process, and you don't follow the wisdom of a process like the loving kindness meditation. Okay, so I think, oh my gosh, no, I don't think, I know that I need to wrap up right here for today, because I'm looking at the time and we've gone actually way longer than I wanted. So let me wrap up right here with my reminder to you that, hey, if this is something you find yourself struggling with, please do not continue to struggle with it on your own. Reach out for help and support. And I'm one person that you can reach out to for the help and support that you need. And you know how to connect with me. Just go to my website at www.academyofthriving.com. Click on the Contact Us page, and you will see different options for connecting with me. So until we connect next time, I wish you lots of peace and joy.